Kethvar brushed the red dust from the metal surface with careful fingers. The artifact was old, very old. 300 years had passed since the humans disappeared, but their things still waited in the ruins. He picked up the strange object and turned it over in his four-fingered hands. It was smooth and cold, with symbols he could not read. The young Zilani archaeologist stood up slowly, his long legs unfolding like a spider's. Around him, the broken buildings of New Geneva stretched toward the orange sky. This human colony on Kepler 442b had been important once. Now it was just another dead place to study. His teacher, Professor Yilmoth, always said the same thing about humans. They were young and foolish. They reached too far too fast. That is why they are gone. But Kethvar wondered about that. The humans had built amazing things. Their cities were beautiful, even in ruins. Their art showed dreams of flying between stars. How could such a people just vanish? He put the artifact in his collection bag and walked deeper into the ruins. His scanner beeped softly as it found more human objects buried in the dust. Most were broken or useless now, but sometimes he found things that made him think. The hegemony had divided all the human worlds after they disappeared. The Zilani took the desert planets, the Thekri claimed the ocean worlds. The massive Gordak kept the mining colonies. The swift Veltar took worlds with good hunting. The wise Morden studied the humans' computer systems. Each race told the same story. One day the humans were there. The next day they were gone. No wars, no sickness, no disasters. Just empty worlds with the lights still on. Kethvar reached a large building that had been a library. Inside, thousands of data crystals lay scattered on the floor. Most were broken, but his scanner found 3 that still worked. He picked them up carefully and put them in his special container. As he worked, he thought about the humans he had seen in the hegemony museums. A few had been found hiding on distant worlds when the first exploration ships arrived. They were kept as examples now, living reminders of a failed species. Kethvar had seen them behind the glass walls, looking sad and lost. His people called them the abandoned ones. They spoke of Earth, the human homeworld, with tears in their eyes. They said their people would come back someday, but that was 3 centuries ago. No one came back. The sun was getting low when Kethvar's scanner found something different. Deep under the library there was a large metal structure. It was not like the other human buildings. This one was built to last, built to hide. He called his excavation team on his communicator. "Bring the deep diggers. I found something big." While he waited, he sat on a broken wall and watched the sunset. The orange light made the ruins look almost alive again. He could imagine humans walking these streets, talking and laughing. What had they been like when they were real people instead of just stories? His team arrived as the first moon rose. The Thekri workers were strong and good at digging. Their thick arms and natural tools made quick work of the packed earth. Soon they had cleared a path down to the hidden structure. It was a door, but not like human doors in the ruins above. This one was made of metal that did not rust. The symbols on it were different too, sharper and more serious. Military symbols, Kethvar thought. He used his translation computer to read the words above the door. Emergency Command Center. Authorized personnel only. The door had an electronic lock, but 3 centuries had drained its power. His team used their cutting tools to open it carefully. Inside, the air was stale but clean. Emergency lights came on as they entered, powered by some backup system that still worked. The room was full of computers and screens. In the center was a large table with a map of the galaxy on it. Hundreds of small lights blinked across the map, marking human colonies and ships. Most of the lights were red now, showing dead or empty places, but some were still green. Kethvar moved to the main computer. It was still working, waiting for commands. He touched the screen carefully and words appeared in human language. Voice authorization required. Please state your name and rank. He tried speaking in human words he had learned. Visitor, student, friend. The computer thought for a moment, then replied, "Authorization not recognized." Playing final message from commanding officer. The screen changed, and suddenly a human appeared. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore the uniform Kethvar had seen in the museums, but this one looked real, lived in. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb, final commander of New Geneva Colony," the human said. "If you are watching this, then our plan worked. We are gone, but we survived. I am recording this message on evacuation day, just before the last transport leaves." Kethvar's translator worked hard to change the human words to Zalani. Some words it could not change, so he heard them in the original language. They sounded sad and strong at the same time. I know the other races will come to divide our worlds, the Admiral continued. I hope they treat our empty places with respect. But if they do not, if they destroy what we built or hurt the few who stayed behind, then they should know this. We did not die. We did not fail. We left because we chose to leave. The recording showed charts and numbers that Kethvar did not understand. Fleet movements, resource counts, population transfers. It was like watching the organized emptying of an entire civilization. The threat we detected was real, Admiral Webb said. Our scientists confirmed it. In 50 years, maybe 100, something terrible would have reached our space. We could have fought. We could have built bigger weapons, stronger walls. But we chose a different path. The human's eyes looked directly at the camera, directly at Kethvar across 3 centuries. We took our people and went into the deep dark between the galaxies. It will be hard. Many will not survive the journey, but some will. And in that darkness we will grow strong. We will learn. We will become what we need to become. Static filled the screen for a moment, then cleared. To whoever finds this message, know that humanity keeps its promises. We promised to protect our people, and we did. We promised to survive, and we will. And if the day comes when our old worlds need us again, we will remember that promise too. The recording ended. The screen went dark. Kethvar stood in the silence thinking about what he had heard. Around the galaxy, his people and the other races had built their new civilization on human ruins. They had laughed at human dreams and called them weak for running away. But what if the humans had not run? What if they had just gone somewhere else to wait? His communicator buzzed. The message was from the orbital station above the planet. Priority alert to all ground teams. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns at the edge of the system. Origin unknown. Please prepare for possible evacuation. Kethvar looked at the dark screen where the human admiral's face had been. Somewhere in the deep space between galaxies, the humans had spent 300 years growing strong. And now something was coming back. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched her home galaxy grow larger on the screen. After 300 years in the dark between stars, the Milky Way looked bright and welcoming. But Sarah knew better than to trust that feeling. Stealth systems are working perfectly, Commander, reported Lieutenant Torres from his position at the sensor station. No one knows we are here. Sarah nodded. The Prometheus was one of humanity's newest scout ships, built in the great shipyards of Deep Haven. It could slip through space like a ghost, watching and listening without being seen. Perfect for this mission. She had volunteered to come back first, to see what had happened to humanity's old home. The journey from the deep dark had taken 2 years, even with humanity's new engines. But those years had been nothing compared to the 3 centuries her people had spent building their new civilization in the empty space between galaxies. "Show me Earth," she said quietly. The screen changed to show humanity's birth world. Sarah had seen it in pictures and videos all her life, but seeing it with her own eyes made her chest tight with emotion. It looked the same as in the old records. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents, but no lights showed on the night side. No ships moved in orbit. Earth was empty. The hegemony turned it into a museum, Torres said, reading from his sensors. There are visitor stations in orbit, but no permanent settlements. They bring tourists to see where the extinct humans used to live. Sarah's hands became fists. Tourists. They were showing off humanity's grave to anyone who wanted to pay for a ticket. "What about the other worlds?" she asked. Torres worked his controls and the screen showed world after world. New Terra, where Sarah's grandmother had been born. Avalon, the first successful colony beyond Earth's solar system. New Beijing, where humanity had built its first space elevators. All of them were occupied now. The Zelani had built their crystal cities on New Terra's deserts. The Thekri had flooded Avalon's continents to make new oceans. The Gordak were strip mining New Beijing's mountains. "Are there any humans left?" Sarah asked. "Some," Torres said carefully. The computer found records of reservation worlds where they keep the humans they found hiding. But Sarah. He looked uncomfortable. "They are not treated well." Sarah moved to her command chair and sat down heavily. She had known this might be what they would find, but knowing and seeing were different things. "Show me," she said. The screen filled with images that made Sarah's stomach hurt. Humans in small camps, surrounded by walls. Humans working in mines under alien guards. Human children in what the hegemony called cultural preservation centers, where they were taught that their own people had been failures. In the museums, humans were displayed like animals in a zoo. Signs explained how humanity had been too aggressive and unable to adapt to galactic civilization. Visitors could watch humans perform their primitive customs for entertainment. Sarah had read the reports, but seeing the reality was worse. These were her people, descendants of those who had been too slow or too stubborn to join the Great Evacuation. They had been abandoned, and now they were being humiliated. "Commander," Torres said softly, "there's something else. The hegemony has records of human technology. They have been trying to copy our old designs, but they do not understand how they work." "Show me their military," Sarah ordered. The screen showed hegemony warships patrolling human space. They were large and looked dangerous, but Sarah could see their weaknesses. The aliens had built their fleets to fight each other in the old style, with big guns and heavy armor. They had not learned the lessons humanity had discovered in the deep dark. 3 centuries of surviving in the emptiness between galaxies had changed humanity in ways these aliens could not imagine. When resources were limited and help was impossible, humans had learned to build ships that were fast, smart, and deadly efficient. Every piece of technology had been tested in the harshest environment possible, the deep void where even light was a precious resource. "Their sensor networks?" Sarah asked. "Basic," Torres replied. "Good enough to watch each other, but not designed to detect our stealth systems. We could move through their entire territory without being seen." Sarah stood and walked to the main display. It showed the current political situation in what had been human space. The hegemony controlled everything through a council of 5 races. They had divided up humanity's former territory like pieces of a cake, each taking what they wanted most. The Zelani, with their love of ancient things, had taken the oldest human colonies. The Thekri had claimed water worlds. The Gordak had seized the mining operations. The Veltar controlled the trade routes. The Morden had taken the research stations and universities. All of them had grown rich from human resources and human knowledge. They had built their new golden age on humanity's grave. "What are your orders, Commander?" Torres asked. Sarah thought about the message she would send back to the deep dark. Admiral Vasquez and the Fleet Council were waiting for her report. Based on what she told them, humanity would decide its next step. They could stay in the dark. They had built a good life there, free from the politics and wars of the galaxy. Many humans wanted to stay hidden, to let the past remain buried. But looking at the images of human children being taught to be ashamed of their heritage, Sarah knew that was not really an option. Not anymore. "Begin deep reconnaissance," she ordered. "I want to know everything about their military capabilities, their political structure, and their economic systems. Map every important world, every major fleet, every leadership center." "That will take months, Commander." "We have time," Sarah said. "And Torres, find me detailed information about the human reservation worlds, population numbers, security arrangements, everything." "Planning a rescue mission?" Torres asked with a small smile. Sarah looked at the screen, where Earth turned slowly in its empty orbit. "Planning for the future," she said. "The hegemony took our worlds and enslaved our people. They turned our birth world into a tourist attraction, and our children into living exhibits." She turned to face her crew. "They think humanity is dead. They think we were weak and foolish, unable to survive in their galaxy. They have built their entire civilization on that lie." The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Sarah could feel the attention of every person present. "It is time they learned the truth," she said. "Humanity did not die. We did not fail. We went into the darkness and became something new, something stronger. And now we are going to come home." She moved back to her command chair and activated the communications system. "Prepare a message probe for Deep Haven. Priority Alpha clearance. Message ready, Commander. Sarah looked at Earth one more time, then began to speak. Admiral Vasquez, this is Commander Chen aboard the Prometheus. I am transmitting full reconnaissance data on the current situation in human space. The news is not good. Our people have been enslaved, our worlds occupied, and our history rewritten. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But their fleets are weak, their unity is fragile, and they have no idea we exist. If the Fleet Council decides to return, we can take back everything they stole from us. Sarah thought about the human children in the camps growing up believing they were inferior. She thought about Earth, empty and cold, displayed like a trophy. Recommend full fleet mobilization, she said. It is time to come home. Kethavar had not slept well since finding the human message. Every night he dreamed of Admiral Webb's tired eyes and serious voice. The words echoed in his mind. If the day comes when our old worlds need us again, we will remember that promise too. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery. His team had found more hidden rooms in the underground facility. Each one told part of the story of humanity's great departure. Supply lists, transport schedules, and population counts painted a picture of the largest evacuation in galactic history. The humans had not just run away. They had planned everything carefully, taking millions of people and countless ships into the unknown darkness between galaxies. It was either the bravest thing Kethavar had ever heard of, or the most foolish. He was examining another data crystal when his communicator buzzed with an urgent message. Professor Yilmoth's voice was tight with worry. Kethavar, returned to the orbital station immediately. We are receiving strange readings from our deep space sensors. Kethavar gathered his equipment and took the next transport up from the planet's surface. The orbital station was busy with activity. Technicians ran between computer stations, and senior researchers spoke in quick, nervous voices. Professor Yilmoth met him at the airlock. The old Zalani's normally calm face showed deep concern. What have you found down there? The professor asked without greeting. Evidence that the humans did not die out, Kethavar replied. They left on purpose. All of them. Professor Yilmoth's 4 eyes widened. That is impossible. Our surveys found no sign of mass evacuation. Because they were very good at hiding their preparations, Kethavar said. He pulled out his datapad and showed his teacher the recordings he had made. Look at these supply manifests. Look at the ship construction records. They built a secret fleet and took their entire civilization somewhere else. The professor studied the data as they walked through the station's corridors. Other researchers stopped their work to listen as Kethavar explained what he had found. The humans detected some kind of threat, he said. Something that would have reached their space within a century. Instead of staying to fight, they decided to evacuate everyone to safety. But where could they go? Asked Dr. Felnock, a Morden expert in stellar navigation. There is nowhere in this galaxy that could hide so many people. Not in this galaxy, Kethavar said quietly. Between galaxies. In the deep dark where nothing lives. The researchers looked at each other with growing alarm. The idea was incredible. The space between galaxies was cold, empty, and deadly. No civilization had ever tried to survive there. Professor Yilmoth led them to the sensor station. The main screen showed readings from their most powerful instruments. The ones that could detect ships and energy signatures across hundreds of light years. 2 days ago, we began detecting unusual patterns at the edge of our sensor range, the professor explained. At first, we thought they were natural phenomena. Solar storms, gravitational anomalies, things like that. The screen showed a map of nearby space. At the very edge, small red dots marked the locations of the strange readings. But the patterns are too regular, too organized, Professor Yilmoth continued. And they are getting stronger. Something large is moving in our direction. Kethavar felt a chill run through his body. How large? We are not sure. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. But if our calculations are correct, the professor's voice trailed off. How large? Kethavar repeated. Thousands of objects, maybe tens of thousands, all moving together in a coordinated formation. The research station fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Only one thing could explain such readings. A massive fleet of spacecraft. Dr. Felnock spoke first. We must contact the Hegemony Council immediately. If this is an invasion force, what if it is not an invasion? Kethavar asked. What if it is something else? All eyes turned to him. He looked at the screen, thinking about Admiral Webb's message and the promise the humans had made 3 centuries ago. The humans said they would return if their old worlds needed them, he said slowly. What if they kept that promise? Professor Yilmoth shook his head. Even if they survived in deep space, which is impossible, they would still be the same primitive species that ran away. They could not threaten the hegemony, could they not? Kethvar challenged. 300 years is a long time. The humans were already clever and adaptable when they left. What might they have become after all that time surviving in the harshest environment possible? Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The emergency communication system activated, and Admiral Zixthak's image appeared on every screen. The massive Gordak admiral looked annoyed rather than worried. All stations in Sector 7 are to maintain normal operations, he announced. Long-range sensors have detected what appears to be a large group of objects approaching from intergalactic space. These are most likely natural phenomena or debris from some cosmic event. The image changed to show official hegemony sensor data. The readings were much more detailed than what the research station could detect, and they painted a terrifying picture. The approaching objects numbered in the tens of thousands, all moving in perfect formation at speeds that should have been impossible. However, Admiral Zixthak continued, as a precaution, all military fleets are being moved to defensive positions. Civilian traffic is to avoid the outer system boundaries until further notice. The transmission ended, but Kethvar could see that the Admiral was more worried than he wanted to admit. The hegemony military was taking this threat seriously, even if they would not say so publicly. We need to warn them, Dr. Felnock said. If the humans have returned with advanced technology, warn them of what? Professor Yilmoth asked. That a species we thought was extinct might be coming home? The Council would think we have lost our minds. Kethvar was studying the sensor readings more carefully. The formation of approaching objects was not random. It showed the kind of organization that could only come from advanced intelligence and long experience working together. Look at how they move, he said, pointing to the display. This is not the formation of conquerors coming to destroy everything in their path. This is the formation of people who know exactly where they are going and what they plan to do when they get there. He turned to his colleagues. The humans are coming home, and I do not think they are planning to ask permission. The research station's communication system crackled to life. A message was being broadcast on all frequencies in multiple languages, but the primary language was one that had not been heard in this part of space for 3 centuries. Human. This is Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Resurgence Fleet, the voice said. The translation computers worked quickly to change the words into languages the researchers could understand. 300 years ago, humanity left these worlds in peace, hoping that those who came after us would be worthy stewards of what we built. We have been watching. We have seen how you treated our legacy and our people. We are not pleased, the message paused, and Kethvar could feel the tension building throughout the station. We gave you our worlds freely, asking only that you treat them and any humans who remained with respect. You chose instead to enslave our people, strip our worlds bare, and turn our birth world into a tourist attraction. This was a mistake, another pause. When the voice continued, it was harder, more determined. We are coming home. Those who have harmed humanity or its interest will answer for their actions. Those who have shown mercy and kindness to our people will be treated with the same. Choose your next actions carefully. The transmission ended. The research station was completely quiet. Kethvar looked at the sensor display where tens of thousands of objects continued their steady approach toward human space. Whatever the humans had become during their long exile in the darkness, they were no longer the weak species that had run away 3 centuries ago. They were coming home, and they were bringing thunder. Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the Retribution, watching the stars of her ancestors grow larger on the main display. Around her, the largest fleet in human history moved through space like a river of light and steel. 50,000 ships had made the journey from Deep Haven. Warships built in the forges of the dark carried weapons that could crack planets. Colony vessels held millions of humans ready to reclaim their birthright. Support ships carried the tools and resources needed to rebuild a civilization. But Elena's attention was focused on the smaller ships at the fleet's edge. Those were the rescue vessels designed for one purpose: to free the humans who had been left behind 3 centuries ago. "Admiral," reported Captain Morrison from the communication station, "we are receiving responses to our broadcast." Elena had not expected silence. The hegemony would respond to humanity's return, probably with threats and demands. She was curious to see what they would say. "Show me." The screen changed to display Admiral Zixthak, the Gordak who commanded the Hegemony Defense Corps. He was massive even for his species, with thick armor plating and the scars of many battles. His 4 arms gestured angrily as he spoke. "Unknown fleet, you are trespassing in hegemony space. Identify yourselves immediately and state your intentions, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Elena smiled. 3 centuries had passed and the hegemony still thought like bullies. They believed that loud voices and big weapons could solve any problem. "Response, Admiral?" Captain Morrison asked. "Open a channel." The main screen switched to show Elena's image being broadcast across hegemony space. She wore the simple blue uniform of the Human Resurgence Fleet, with no decorations except the small Earth insignia on her collar. "Admiral Zixthak," she said calmly. "I am Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez. We are humans returning to our ancestral home. We have stated our intentions clearly, to reclaim our worlds and free our people." She paused, letting that sink in. "As for acts of war, Admiral, that decision is yours to make. We would prefer peace, but we are prepared for either option." Elena cut the transmission and turned to her staff. "Fleet status report." "All ships are operating at full readiness," reported Commander Park from the tactical station. "Stealth scouts report that hegemony fleets are moving to intercept us at the Kepler Gate." Elena nodded. The Kepler Gate was the main entry point into what had once been human space. It was a natural choke point where the hegemony could concentrate their forces. They would try to stop the human fleet there, far from populated worlds where the fighting might cause civilian casualties. It was actually a smart strategy. If they had been facing any other enemy, "How many ships are they sending?" Elena asked. "Current count is 8,000 vessels from all 5 hegemony races," Commander Park replied. "They appear to be bringing everything they have." Elena's senior staff exchanged looks. 8,000 ships was a massive force by the standards of the old galaxy. Before the evacuation, it would have been enough to overwhelm any human fleet. But the humans who had left this galaxy 3 centuries ago were not the same as the ones who were returning now. "Admiral," called Commander Sarah Chen from her station. Elena had requested Sarah's transfer from the Prometheus to serve as her intelligence officer. "I am detecting communication traffic between the hegemony fleets. They are coordinating their approach." Elena moved to Sarah's station and studied the intercepts. The hegemony commanders were arguing about tactics and chain of command. 5 different species with 5 different military traditions trying to work together in a crisis. They are not used to fighting as a unified force, Sarah observed. Each race has its own way of conducting warfare. Elena had studied the intelligence reports carefully. The Zelani preferred long-range bombardment with their energy weapons. The Thekri used swarm tactics with small, fast ships. The Gordak relied on heavily armored battleships and boarding actions. The Veltar were hunters who liked to strike from ambush. The Mordun used advanced technology and superior coordination. Separately, each race was formidable. Together, they should have been unstoppable, but they were not really together. They were 5 separate forces trying to pretend they were one fleet. "Time to the Kepler Gate?" Elena asked. 6 hours at current speed," replied the navigation officer. Elena walked to the center of the command deck and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across 50,000 ships, human crews stopped their work to listen. "Warriors of humanity," she began. "In 6 hours we will face the hegemony fleet in battle. They outnumber us 8 to 1. Their ships are large and their weapons are powerful. By the old rules of warfare, we should be afraid." She paused, looking around at the faces of her crew. They were not afraid. 3 centuries in the dark had burned away fear and left only determination. "But we are not fighting by the old rules," Elena continued. "We learned new rules in the cold between the stars. We learned that survival matters more than honor. We learned that victory matters more than fairness. And we learned that there is no substitute for being better than your enemies." On the main display, the Kepler Gate grew larger. Soon it would be time to show the galaxy what humanity had become. "The hegemony divided our worlds among themselves like spoils of war," Elena said. "They enslaved our people and erased our history. They thought we were dead and they acted accordingly. Her voice hardened. Today we will show them the difference between being dead and being patient. The fleet acknowledged with a thunder of voices across 50,000 ships. Elena felt the familiar calm that always came before battle. She had been a warrior her entire adult life, first in the asteroid wars of the Deep Dark, then in the campaign against the Voidstalkers at the galaxy's edge. But this was different. This was personal. All ships battle formation, she ordered. Stealth units to advance positions. Heavy units to reserve positions. Colony ships to the rear with full escorts. The great fleet began to reorganize itself as it flew. What had looked like a massive, unwieldy formation became something else entirely. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each one knowing exactly where it needed to be. Signal from the Hegemony fleet, reported Captain Morrison. Admiral Zixthak is demanding that we stop and surrender. Elena smiled. Response? He says that if we do not surrender immediately, his forces will destroy us all. He guarantees safe passage for any who wish to return to wherever we came from. The command deck was quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed, and soon the entire crew was laughing. Send a reply, Elena ordered. Tell Admiral Zixthak that we appreciate his offer, but we must decline. We have been away from home for a long time, and we are eager to stay. She moved to her command chair and sat down. On the screen, the Kepler gate was close now. Beyond it, 8,000 enemy ships waited in battle formation. Admiral, called Commander Park, enemy fleet is moving to intercept. They are spreading out to cover the entire gate approach. Elena nodded. It was exactly what she had expected them to do. The Hegemony commanders were thinking in terms of the old warfare, where fleets met in open battle and the stronger side won. But humanity had learned different lessons in the dark. Signal all stealth units, Elena ordered. Execute Thunder Protocol. Across the human fleet, invisible ships changed course and accelerated. They had been moving with the main fleet, hidden by advanced cloaking systems that the Hegemony could not detect. Now they spread out like a net, moving to positions around and behind the enemy formation. Admiral, reported the communications officer, Admiral Zixthak is broadcasting on all frequencies. He is ordering us to stop or be destroyed. Elena activated her personal communicator. Her image would appear on every Hegemony ship, just as Admiral Zixthak's had appeared on hers. Admiral Zixthak, she said calmly, you are about to learn why humanity survived 3 centuries in the deep dark between galaxies. You are about to discover what we became while you grew fat on our abandoned worlds. She stood up from her chair, and her voice carried the certainty of someone who had never lost a battle. You wanted war. You shall have it. Kethvar pressed his face against the observation window of the research station, watching the distant flashes of light that marked the Battle of the Kepler Gate. Each flash represented weapons fire that could destroy cities, but from this distance they looked like tiny sparks. The battle had been raging for 3 hours. At first, the Hegemony forces had seemed confident. 8,000 ships against 50,000 sounded like impossible odds, but Admiral Zixthak had believed his forces were stronger and better trained. He had been wrong. The Hegemony fleet is retreating, announced Dr. Felnock from his position at the sensor station. His voice was filled with disbelief. Or what is left of it. Kethvar turned from the window. What do you mean, what is left of it? The Morden researcher checked his readings again before answering. The Hegemony began the battle with 8,000 ships. Current count shows fewer than 3,000 still operational. Professor Yilmoth joined them at the sensor station. The old Zelani's face was pale with shock. That cannot be correct. The human fleet may be large, but they have been away from this galaxy for centuries. Their technology should be obsolete. Then explain this, Dr. Felnock said, pointing to his display. The human ships move in perfect coordination like they share a single mind. Their weapons cut through Hegemony shields like they are made of paper, and their stealth systems are so advanced that most of their fleet cannot even be detected. Kethvar studied the tactical display. The remaining Hegemony ships were scattered and disorganized, falling back toward the inner systems. The human fleet followed them, but slowly, like a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. They are not trying to destroy the Hegemony fleet completely, he observed. They are hurting them. Hurting them where? Professor Yilmoth asked. Before anyone could answer, the station's communication system activated. The voice that came through was human, speaking in accented but clear Galactic. Standard, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Resurgence Fleet, we are requesting permission to dock at your research station. Professor? Yilmoth looked around the room nervously. The other researchers were staring at him, waiting for him to make a decision that could affect all their lives. Why do you want to dock here? He asked carefully. We have someone on board who wishes to speak with the archaeologist Kethvar, Sarah replied. We understand he has been studying human ruins and has made some important discoveries. All eyes turned to Kethvar. He felt his heart beating faster as he realized that his life was about to change forever. Grant them permission, he said. Professor Yilmoth started to object, but Kethvar cut him off. These humans have just defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. If they wanted to harm us, they would not ask permission to dock. An hour later, Kethvar stood in the station's main airlock as it cycled open. Commander Sarah Chen stepped through, followed by 2 other humans in the blue uniforms of their fleet. They looked different from the humans in the museums, taller and more confident, with eyes that had seen wonders beyond imagination. Archaeologist Kethvar? Sarah asked in his own language. Kethvar was surprised to hear perfect Zelani coming from a human throat. You speak my language very well, Sarah smiled. We have had 3 centuries to study all the languages of this galaxy. We wanted to be prepared for our return. She gestured to her companions. This is Dr. Rebecca Martinez, our chief historian, and Lieutenant David Kim, our cultural specialist. We would like to see what you found in the ruins of New Geneva. They spent the next several hours in Kethvar's laboratory. The humans examined every artifact he had discovered, read every data file he had recovered, and listened carefully as he described finding the hidden command center. Dr. Martinez was especially interested in Admiral Webb's final message. She played it several times, making notes in a language Kethvar could not read. Admiral Webb was my great-grandfather, she said finally. He died during the journey to Deep Haven, but not before he saw humanity's new home established. I never thought I would hear his voice again. Kethvar felt a strange emotion, something he had never experienced before. For 3 centuries he had studied the ruins of dead civilizations. But these humans were not dead. They were alive, real, standing in front of him and mourning their ancestors just as any living people would. What did you become out there? He asked. In the darkness between galaxies? Lieutenant Kim answered. We became what we needed to become to survive. The deep dark is not empty like people think. It is full of dangers that this galaxy has never imagined. We fought things that exist in the spaces between stars, creatures that feed on energy itself, machine intelligences older than galaxies. Sarah continued the story. We learned to build ships that could hide from anything, weapons that could kill gods, and computers that could think faster than light itself. We became hunters in the ultimate wilderness. But we never forgot where we came from, Dr. Martinez added. Every child born in Deep Haven learned about Earth, about the worlds we left behind, about the people we had to leave. We promised ourselves that someday we would come home. Kethvar thought about the human children he had seen in the hegemony museums, taught to be ashamed of their heritage. What will you do now? Will you take revenge for what was done to your people? The 3 humans looked at each other. Sarah spoke carefully. We will free every human who was enslaved or imprisoned. We will reclaim every world that was stolen from us. But revenge? She shook her head. Revenge is for people who are weak. We are not weak. Before Kethvar could ask what she meant, the station's alarms began sounding. Professor Yilmoth's voice came over the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. The Hegemony Council is broadcasting an urgent message. They hurried to the main conference room, where the large display showed the 5 leaders of the hegemony races. All of them looked frightened and angry. Admiral Zixthak spoke first, his massive form filling most of the screen. The terrorist fleet calling itself human has committed acts of piracy and murder against peaceful hegemony forces. We demand that all galactic governments unite to expel these invaders. But even as he spoke, his words rang hollow. Behind him, Kethvar could see hegemony officials hurrying back and forth, clearly preparing for evacuation. The Tekri representative spoke next. These so-called humans are not the peaceful species that once lived in this region. They have become something monstrous, corrupted by their time in the deep void. Sarah laughed softly. Monstrous, she repeated. Because we will not let them continue enslaving our people. The broadcast continued with similar speeches from the other hegemony leaders. They called for unity, for resistance for someone else to solve their problem. But Kethvar could see the truth in their eyes. They were terrified. When the broadcast ended, Sarah activated her communicator. Admiral Vasquez, this is Commander Chen. The hegemony leadership is preparing to evacuate their core worlds. Recommend we accelerate the liberation schedule. The Admiral's voice came back immediately. Agreed. All rescue fleets are authorized to begin immediate operations. Priority targets are the reservation worlds and labor camps. Sarah turned to Kethvar. Would you like to see what happens next? 2 days later, Kethvar stood on the bridge of a human rescue ship, watching as the barriers around Camp 7 dissolved under controlled energy beams. Below, thousands of humans who had spent their lives in captivity looked up at the sky in wonder as ships bearing the blue flag of humanity descended to take them home. Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of worlds. The hegemony's careful system of oppression was crumbling as human fleets appeared wherever their people had been held prisoner. How many? Kethvar asked. Almost 2 million, Sarah replied. 2 million people who thought they had been abandoned forever. Tonight they sleep as free humans for the first time in their lives. On the main display, Earth appeared no longer empty and dark. Human ships filled its orbital space and lights were beginning to appear on the continents below. The homeworld was waking up after its long sleep. What about the hegemony? Kethvar asked. What will happen to my people and the others? Sarah was quiet for a moment before answering. The galaxy is large enough for everyone if they can learn to share it properly this time. The humans who choose to return to Earth will be welcomed. The humans who want to stay in their adopted homes will be protected. And the hegemony races will have to learn to coexist with a humanity they can no longer ignore or oppress. She turned to look at him directly. Your people, Kethvar, treated human artifacts and ruins with respect. You sought to understand rather than exploit. That will be remembered when the new borders are drawn. Months later, Kethvar stood in the rebuilt library of New Geneva, now serving as a joint archive where humans and aliens could study their shared history together. Human families walked the streets outside, children playing in gardens that had been empty for 3 centuries. Above them, human warships patrolled the system, their sleek forms a reminder that humanity had returned not as refugees but as guardians. The galaxy had learned that underestimating human patience, resilience, and capacity for growth had been its greatest mistake. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.